Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our VUU annual meeting. This year's annual meeting is truly unique for several reasons. First of all, none of us are sitting in the sanctuary, which is in itself a very rare thing. Second of all, the only way we are able to gather like this is because of a group of extremely talented and technically minded people who are making this technology possible. So for them, we say thanks. Thanks so much. We have a full agenda today, but I would like to begin by asking Reverend Andy to give us a thought or a prayer.
Well, I came across this reading by Alice Walker. It's from a supplement to our hymnal called "Lifting Our Voices." It contains all. It contains readings by a lot of people, and this reading from Alice Walker is brief, but I think it is good for today. She says, "Love, if it is love, never goes away. It is embedded in us like seams of gold in the earth, waiting for light, waiting to be struck." So today in this meeting, may we find that thread of love in ourselves and in our work together. May it be so. Amen.
Thank you. The next thing on our agenda is an interpretation of bylaws, because we have some people in our congregation who are experts on these bylaws, and I wanted to make sure that we were considering this a legal meeting. The voting that has taken place by SurveyMonkey ballot and may take place again today can be done by voice or by written ballot at the discretion of the presiding officer. That's me. Except that all elections must be voted upon by written ballot, and absentee voting will be allowed when a member is unable to attend. And that's what I'm using to interpret the SurveyMonkey ballot that was sent to us, and we voted electronically. Yes, it was not a paper ballot, but yes, it can be considered an absentee ballot, since it was impossible for us to get together person to person to vote in an electronic ballot. In both cases, the Leadership Development Committee will be responsible for counting the ballots and presenting to us by the end of this meeting those people who have been elected to office. We are electing people for the board, for the Special Funds Committee, and for the Leadership Development Committee. To help us get into that frame of mind for the election, and for those who have not yet had the opportunity to vote, I would like to turn this meeting over to Ken St. John. Ken?
Sue, just a quick, there are a lot of people hearing your voice quite garbled, so I wonder while Ken is going on, if you could maybe switch to Lee's machine or your phone or something.
Yes, I will.
That'd be great. Thanks. Now, Ken, you should be able to unmute yourself. Possibly not, so hold on one second. Just another minute. Ken, oh. Are you under Janet? Aha. I think someone got you. Ken, are you able to unmute?
Oh, now I'm unmuted. Hello,
There you
everyone.
go. Sorry about that.
All right. I was hoping we'd been able to determine our quorum by now, but the LDC members are quickly scanning the gallery, which turns out to be harder than you would think when there's a slide being presented, and I'm struggling. But we're trying to scan through the gallery and each count a section, and I'll get back to you on the quorum achievement later on in the meeting. All right, and now Sue talked about this already, that if you have not voted already, so if you've already voted through the SurveyMonkey ballot process, or we got over 100 of those, and we got a couple of paper absentee ballots, then you have an opportunity now during the meeting to vote here in person. The way we're going to do that is you can use the Zoom chat feature, and we're going to suggest you are going to private message one of the LDC team members. That's Jody Cicerello, and we'll show her name on here when we start going over the specific ballot items. It's important, by the bylaws, this is a private, anonymous, secret ballot. If you're voting today now, we're bending that a bit. Jody is going to know who you voted for, and she's going to keep that a secret to herself. As long as you private message Jody, the default on the chat is to message everybody. And so if you're not careful there, everybody will see your vote if you're voting today. So I hope that's clear. You'll want to send a private chat message to Jody. Also, I want to mention that some of the ballot items, we have 5 ballot items to vote on, are non-contested. So I'll let you decide for yourself what you want to spend your energy voting on here and in person. That you may just want to vote on the contested items that will likely have a closer vote.
Tell them what's contested.
I will when we get there. Thank you for your question. Okay, first, before we do that, I'd like to go to the next slide and give some recognition. I want to recognize the entire Leadership Development Committee that put this ballot together, this slate of candidates. And of course, I'm just looking at the slide, but if they can see the gallery, you'll be able to give your visual appreciation to these people. And you don't have to wait till the end because your noise won't bother anybody. So there's me in reverse alphabetical order, Rebecca Riggs, Beverly McCormick, Linda Muth, Jody Cicerello, and Tom Briggs. That's the Leadership Development Committee. So I thank them all, and it was our pleasure to serve and put this slate together. Now, I want to give special recognition to 2 individuals because they reached their term limits. They were elected or appointed into their position and served to the maximum amount of time they could. And the first one is from the Leadership Development Committee, Tom Briggs, who had originally been appointed. So he actually put in 2 full terms, which is the term limit, plus an extra half a term approximately through the appointment. So that was a full nearly 5 years of service to the Leadership Development Committee from Tom. So thank you very much, Tom. And then Chris Saar, the second one, was on the Special Funds Committee, and their terms are longer and their limits are longer. So Chris served a full 3 3-year terms on the Special Funds Committee, and that's now come to an end at the end of this month when the current term ends. So thank you very much, Chris and Tom, for your service. We all appreciate you very much. All right, now let's move into the ballot items. If you are voting today, you might want to have a pencil, and or you might want to start typing your private chat to Jody. First is the Board of Trustees. We have 3 openings. Whoops, we want to go back. There we go. 3 openings and 3 people to select from them. Pam Swan, Libby Bean, and Kevin Gooman. You're also, of course, welcome to put in write-in votes. Just make sure your total isn't more than 3 or your vote won't count. All right, let's move to the next item. Still on, whoops, back to, there we go. Still on the Board of Trustees, we had a vacancy on the Board of Trustees in the last year, and Mary Wolf Francis was appointed to fill that vacancy. So she's already a member of the board and working with them. The bylaws require then, if that happened in the first year of the term, of a 2-year term, then the congregation needs to vote to approve Mary Wolf Francis' appointment in that vacated position for the remaining year on that term. So that's what that ballot item is. Next, special funds. We have 3 candidates to fill 2 spots, so don't vote for more than 2. David Shea, Joel Sanis, or Carl Anderson. And write-ins, of course, are welcome. All right, I'm ready to go to the next one. I hope people had enough time to look at that. Here's where we have more choices. We have 6 candidates to fill 4 spots on the Leadership Development Committee. Rebecca Riggs, who is currently on the committee and who was appointed to fill a vacancy, but that term ends at the end of this month, so she's simply running for another term. Beverly McCormick, who was elected 2 years ago, so this will be her 2nd full term if she's elected. Lee Leskowski, Gary Klepser, Joyce Donahue, and Bert Baker. And again, write-ins are accepted. And the last one is that we had another vacancy on the Leadership Development Committee, and we didn't actually fill it. It was too close to the time of the election, but we have identified Roz Hawkins as the one we want to have as the person we are looking to say is filling that vacancy for the 2nd half of that term. So voting for Roz now says she can finish that vacated term, which will end at this time next year. And of course, you could put write-ins there as well if you wish. So private message to Jody Cicerello, and let's see, through the course of the meeting, President Sue will announce that the voting is closed.
Ken, we're going to back up and go through the slides one more time because some people didn't get a chance to see everything for long enough, okay?
Why don't you just go ahead and index through them while I blabble some more?
Okay.
Feel free. So Sue will be announcing that voting has closed. That'll mean we're not taking any more votes, and that'll give Jody and the Leadership Development Committee in the background a little more time to tally up. We have to collate the SurveyMonkey, the absentees, and the day of voting that's happening right now. And then the last agenda topic in the meeting will be to announce the winners. So I will be back then for that. That's all I've got. And also notice at the top of each of these foils that Deanna is showing, it repeats the name Jody Cicerello. That's who you want to private chat your vote to if you're voting during the meeting. I have no idea if I'm still on camera. I should smile, huh? No, it's the foil.
You'll need to mute yourself, Ken.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sue, you should be able to unmute yourself now on the new phone.
I have one more question for Ken, and that is, Ken, have we determined a quorum for this meeting? We do not have a quorum? Could you please unmute and let us know what your thoughts are?
Okay, there, now I can unmute again. We don't have the quorum count yet, but we're working on it, and we'll get back to you as soon as we do.
Okay, if you will let me know as soon as possible. Thank you.
Okay, Sue, we have some more messages. I'm going to go back through the slides one more time.
Good.
And so just hang on just a couple minutes and we'll give everyone a chance to look again.
In the Board of Trustees, please vote for no more than 3. Pam Swan, Libby Bean, and Kevin Guman, Guhman, for those of you who are typing. Our incumbent, who was appointed and needs to be confirmed for the rest of the 2-year term, is Mary Wolf Francis. In the Special Funds Committee, the candidates are David Shea, Joel Sanis, and Carl Anderson. Joel is an elected incumbent. That means he has been on the committee and is up for re-election. Please vote for no more than 2. And I am quite sure if you just put in SF for special funds dash and the first names, since there are no duplicates, Ken will be able to determine who you voted for. On the Leadership Development Committee, LDC. I am sure for those of you who don't like to do a lot of typing, since there are no duplicates in candidates, if you just type in the abbreviation, for instance, LDC for Leadership Development Committee, and first names, that Ken and his committee will be able to determine for whom you are voting. The minutes of our last annual meeting were posted in a message that came from Sue Ringler. And I now will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the last annual meeting. If you wish to make the motion, please just chat. Say, I move.
I so move.
Do I hear a second? The move was Mary, correct?
Correct.
Do I hear?
I will second that, Deanne.
Deanne will second. On your screen is a poll. Just click on the one that you agree with.
Sue, tell me when you'd like me to stop and share it.
I think we can stop, Dee. It's sort of slowed down a whole lot. We have a 100% approval of the previous minutes, and I'm going to make a couple of assumptions. One is that the 89 people who voted are members, and therefore we have a quorum. You also had in the message that came with happenings this week, a copy of my annual report. I'd like to give you some meat for that annual report. I would first like to thank publicly the Vice President of the Board of Trustees, Bob Favre, who has tirelessly acted as a meticulous pointer out of details that either needed to be added to our activities or deducted from our thinking to make them appropriate and bylaw congruent. The new board of last year attended a leadership workshop last August. One of the presenters at that workshop was Barbara Face, and she did an absolutely stellar job. I'd like to thank her for that. And the board determined 3 goals. They wanted to develop a plan to include youth on the board, a very important constituent of the Board of Trustees and a critical part of our congregation. The policy committee crafted for us, in addition to the board's policies, to provide for the appointment for up to 2 persons between the ages of 16 and 24 to serve ex officio on the board for 2-year terms. So we met our first goal. Our second goal was to provide more voice, more public voice, to voice VUU's social justice belief. We did that in 2 ways. The first was we sent a letter to several publications' editorial board in support of the rights of transgender persons. And the second was to voice approval and support for Reverend Todd Eckloff, who is a minister in Spokane, Washington, who self-published a book of essays at last year's General Assembly and was censured for doing so, among other things, by the UU Ministers Association. So we accomplished that goal. Our last goal was that each board members would attend a minimum of 2 interfaith events. We were getting there, and then COVID hit, and nobody could attend anything. But some of the board members succeeded in attending 2, and one board member, Linda Stenholm, succeeded in attending far more than 2. So we've achieved 2.5 of our goals for the year. When the board was elected, each board member agrees to serve as a liaison between the board and another committee of the congregation. And this year we had some very active committees. Our church treasurer, Deanne, participated in the finance committee, as did our vice president, Bob Favre. Linda Stenholm was the liaison to the policy committee. Our board secretary, Debbie Grande, was liaison to the campaign planning committee. And I was the liaison to the campaign committee, capital campaign committee, which morphed gradually into the stewardship committee. This means that your board members not only attended a monthly meeting of an hour and a half, but also attended 1 or more monthly meeting of the committees to which they acted as liaisons and kept us very well informed. After a lot of very animated discussion and a little bit of research, the board voted not to have a congregational survey this year. And I suspect it was a rather fortuitous decision, because with the COVID shutting down of the sanctuary for worship for a period of time, we might want to consider putting out a survey soon to find out what the congregation's thoughts are on reopening the sanctuary and what the VUU of the future should look like and should act like. The board lost 2 members this year, one to resignation, one to transfer to Denver, where I understand, by the way, it was snowing yesterday. So, you know, might be willing to come back to our 100 degrees. I was elected as acting president, and the other position was left open, as I think I made somewhere between 8 and 12 phone calls before I got an acceptance of the position, of a position, to the second resignation from Mary Wolf-Francis, and for which we are very grateful. This points out the difficulty in getting people to participate in the board. I suspect it's because they think it's a whole lot more work than it is. We are now a board that governs by policy, not by task, as I like to say it. If a board was governing by task, and let's say, for example, we wanted to paint the sanctuary, there would be almost a free-for-all discussion of the board as to what color that should be, with discussions and arguments and votes. In a policy governing board, the properties committee would choose the color, and bring it to the board and say, here it is. And the board would say, oh, okay. We do a meeting once a month throughout the year. And when we were able to meet in person, we were doing 1 month in person and the next month on Zoom. So that when we all transitioned to Zoom for worship, we were pretty familiar with that. And the board meeting has not ever gone over an hour and a half in the time I've been on the board. And most other committees try very hard to limit their discussions and votes to an hour and a half. So about 3 to 5 hours a month, not a difficult contribution to a lot of people. So my parting shot on that particular item is to urge you to seriously consider running next year in the election for board, and ask some of the board members what they do. Ask if maybe you can sit in on a Zoom meeting of the board. They're not secret meetings. You are welcome to join any of them. We held 2 congregational conversations, and this meeting today is our 2nd congregational meeting. At the February congregational meeting, which turned out to be a special meeting, the congregation voted to accept bylaws changes that clarified term limits for those who were appointed to complete the term of someone who resigned. And Ann Schneider did a terrific job in delivering a presentation on how to put together a church budget 101. It was so clear that I think we all understood it. And again, then COVID hit and our budget changed. And our budget committee has done, again, an incredible job and a lot of hard work in putting together a budget which will come up for your approval. The board meetings became virtual. Has that stopped us from trying to be good stewards for your congregation? I don't think so. I think we have pulled together as a board very well. Our board members, Linda Stenholm, Debbie Grande, Bob, who I've mentioned a couple of times, Mary, who is new but contributing as actively as any of the others, and of course, Deanne, have worked very hard this year, and I thank them for their service. And with this, I shall go on to our next meeting agenda item and close the voting for the election of committee members. Our next item on the agenda is the minister's annual report, and for that, we will go back to Reverend Andy.
Thank you, Sue. And Ken, you can interrupt me at any time if you need to announce a quorum or whatever you need to do there. Just feel free to step in.
Andy, he did chat that we have a quorum, so
Okay.
We're good.
All right,
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Ken. Well, first I want to just thank a whole bunch of people, and I can't name them all, but the Board of Trustees and all the volunteers, the members of the congregation who have stepped in to help with services. There's things changed for us on a dime, just like for everybody else. And doing things like this, doing our virtual worship services would not be possible without just a whole bunch of people. The staff has been incredible during this time. Sue and Marcy and Haley and Katie and Joe. So thank you, thank you, thank you to all of you. I think it's safe to say that the 2019-20 congregational year was unlike any other. Our work on social justice has been strong this fiscal year. I'm talking about the fiscal year that ends at the end of this month, that started last July. We focused on environmental preservation with a specific emphasis on how our eating affects the climate. We've gathered more signatures for Invest in Ed than any other Valley Interfaith Project congregation. again. I'm so proud of our key folks who are working on that. When COVID struck, we offered our sanctuary up to the Interfaith Homeless Emergency Lodging Program. They needed a place to be, and having one place allows them to have a safe and clean space. And so I'm proud to say they're still there in our sanctuary. They're still running a program of casework and basic care for our neighbors experiencing homelessness. And they've even been able to graduate people out of that program and into housing because of your generosity. So thank you for all you do to make that possible. We have this past year reflected on racial justice and how to go about the work. The continued deaths of Black Americans at the hands of police remind us that we can't look away, that we have to work as hard as we can to pursue the path of love in our communities. There will be new opportunities to do that work together in the coming months, so keep an eye out for a book discussion and maybe another thing or two that we can do. For the staff, this has been a congregational year of transition. We said goodbye to Kelly Walker Hart after 28 years of faithful service, and we welcomed our new Director of Music Ministries, Katie Seifert. And now we're saying goodbye to our administrator, Sue Ringler, who has done a wonderful job of helping us focus on mission, even in our financial dealings, and of setting a culture of welcome in the office. Sue is going to be missed dearly. And I just want to take a moment to virtually clap for Sue and all she's done. She's not done, by the way. She's going to Tempe Community Action Agency, and where she'll be running programs for them. And so I'm happy for the city of Tempe. I'm happy for Sue. I'm sad for us, but we'll be posting the job tomorrow, so we're not letting any grass grow under our feet when it comes to that. As always, VUU members and friends did amazing work this year. You worked for justice, you taught one another, you taught me, you cared for each other. It is inspiring to be a part of this incredible congregation. But it wasn't all great news. Our combined worship and faith formation attendance was down in 2019, down by about 10% from the previous year, which was a little high, down to the same levels we had in 2014. Membership is stable. It neither grows much nor decreases much, so we have replacement growth essentially in membership, as has been the case for several years. We at VUU, I think, are seeing the leading edge of trends that have many people moving away from communities of faith. COVID-19 may have shown us why, and it may be showing us the path through this time of uncertainty towards something better. The pandemic has accelerated the trend of using social media and video connection technologies like Zoom. It was a trend that was already present, but as disasters do, it is accelerating that trend. In faith communities, we were in the mode of doing religion as we had always known it, relying too much on people to come to our building. We haven't been taking our mission to new media as much as we need to connect with a rising generation of people who their entire lives have engaged everything from education to entertainment to family connections, largely via online video. We can rail against that new world, and sometimes I do, but if railing against that new world is our main message, we will decline into irrelevance. That's why the VUU staff and Deanne McClanahan, one of our key members working on Zoom services, are taking video ministry training right now. We're leveling up in our ability to take our values and our faith tradition onto new media in more effective ways. COVID-19 is again doing what large-scale crises do. It's accelerating trends that were already present. If we don't adapt to the rise of use in video media, we'll be less relevant when COVID-19 finally recedes, and so we're working to improve. The pandemic has also put stress on the fissures that were already present in our hyper-capitalist system. Too many are without health care, and it puts us all at risk. The gap between the rich and poor runs along the lines of race and social class. Along with adopting new technology, we'll need to think together about what our mission calls us to work on in this emerging national landscape that will certainly include a deep recession and potentially a depression. We all need to begin thinking in new ways about the future of the congregation that we co-create. So here's a little video that I put together to encourage innovative thinking right now. Don't worry about catching all the questions. I'll send those to you later. This is just to spark us. One day, we will gather in person again. We will sing together, shoulder to shoulder again. But in important ways, things will never be quite the same as they were. If we're unprepared to adapt, our new reality will be frightening. But if we learn and innovate and do some good thinking together now, the post-COVID liberal religious landscape will be an exciting place full of new opportunities for mission-related work, new opportunities to change our communities for the better. Unitarian Universalist theologian James Luther Adams said, as I said this morning, religious liberalism holds that the resources, divine and human, that are available for the achievement of meaningful change justify an attitude of ultimate optimism. In other words, all the resources we need to carry out our mission of love, service, and justice are available to us. In fact, we make up a big part of those resources ourselves. So I say let's work now to lay the foundation for a VUU that is still doing great work at the turn of the 22nd century. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. I'm going to move ahead with the finance report, and I will share my screen in just a moment. It's harder when you have to talk and run the video at the same time. So this is the end of my year as a financial analyst, and so I want to give everybody a little status report. We work on a fiscal year, as Andy said, it ends on June 30th, and our last set of financials is for April. So these financials have 2 months left to go. And you'll see that we are short about $25,000 in our budgeted income. And then in expense, we have savings of about $23,000. So we're actually right about at our budget, just $2,500 from our planned budget, because the minute COVID hit, our staff took a hard look at everything. We stopped spending on certain things. And we've also held off on paying, well, we're about $3,000 short on paying the dues. We did have an overage in property because of an air conditioner, and some savings when Kelly left and we had the Minister of Music position unfilled. And then some savings in, as you can see, almost every other category in the budget. So we came into COVID in good shape, and people are holding up, for the most part, their end of our bargain. On April 30th, we had $107,000 in our operating account, which is very high. We'll talk about the PPP monies in just a minute. $60,000 in our savings account. If you remember, it took us a few years to get that account refunded, and now we're really happy with where that is. We keep restricted funds cash available for all restricted donations that are sent to us. So if you were to send $100 for a youth trip, that would go into restricted funds. We have $233,000 in our capital campaign accounts and $441 in our special funds account. I'm guessing that's a little higher now that it's June and things have come back just a little bit. If anyone has questions while I'm talking, if you'll just chat them into the chat, I'll be able to look at it in just a minute. So I just wanted to show that our online giving, no surprise, has increased more than doubled since January. We're getting a lot more text donations and online, and every week Sue is putting this little graphic into the newsletter or the happenings to help you get it set up with texting. This looks like a lot of instructions, but honestly, if you just type give to this phone number, you will be able to walk through the instructions that are given by the system. So let's see, before we move into the revenue, maybe I'll just check and see if there were any questions on, okay, so just on the building campaign, and Andy has answered that. So we'll move on with the budget, and feel free to post any questions. We posted this budget several weeks ago. We presented it at the meeting 2 weeks ago, and then we posted a very minor change at about a week ago. So hopefully you've had the chance to look at the detail online, but this is the big picture. So while we had a budget of $625,000 last year for income, we think we'll end up at $590,000 this year, maybe a little better because May and June are looking a little better than we expected. And we're proposing a budget of $503,000 for next year. So the difference is really the combination of the pledge drive, where we had a lower pledge base reported to us this year, and then rather than our 98% recovery of contributions, we're actually planning on 85%. And we're just doing that because we know that everybody made their pledges before COVID happened. So it could be better, but hopefully it won't be lower than this amount. I want to point out that our rental income, we're budgeting the full thing. So far, our Montessori school has paid all their rent and plans to. They're starting back to school with a lot of precautions. The Jewish congregation that meets at our facility is continuing to pay their rent, even though they're not planning to meet right away, and they're not able to meet there right now while we're housing the iHelp program. But they have been very supportive and will be working with us to support what we're doing and also support our budget. So we're very grateful for that. Now, here comes the fun part. So this year we had, you see that we're about $35,000 short on income. And we had an SBA grant that's $10,000 that was given to us by the government. There are no restrictions on that grant, no payback. We also received $78,000 in the PPP paycheck program. And so as long as we spend that $78,000 on our payroll and on our mortgage, it was over a 2.5 month period. Now it's been extended for a couple more months. So that will also become a grant. We'll have to apply and put in the paperwork to get that $78,000 forgiven. But we had $88,000 available to us this year, which means we'll have a surplus that we can carry forward to next year. So we're planning to carry forward $61,000. And it could be a little more depending on how we end up this year. And then we also have a member who has promised a one-time $30,000 grant in memory of a family member. And so we're very grateful for that. And that gives us $118,000 in one-time income. So Andy said that we can be optimistic and that we have the resources that we need, and sometimes we just have to sit and be optimistic and also make sure we take advantage of the opportunities as they come. So of course we're budgeting virtually the same in expense as we do in income. Most things have either been decreased substantially, like committees, music, RE, social action. We have held all of our payroll at exactly the same. So what that means is we plan to keep everyone on our campus employed. They've all been working, whether they're on the campus or working from home, playing piano, recording music, doing live Facebook. Our plan is to keep them employed as a top priority of the board. Of course, the utilities won't go down. We are planning to pay less of our UUA dues, which would be the first time that we've done that in over 25 years, probably a lot longer than that. But we are planning to decrease those dues as part of the COVID budget response. So a few notes. I want to especially thank the entire Finance Committee led by David Shea and the budget compiler, who is Ann Schneider. They really went above and beyond this year. It was not your normal budget process, as you can imagine. And of course, we don't have any hopes of staying as close to budget as we always have, because we just don't know what's going to happen in our world. Reverend Andy spent a lot of time on this budget, and so did the board, much more than normal, and we had to approve it and reapprove it several times. So the plan for next year is that the board will, with the Finance Committee, review the budget and the results at least quarterly. If we need to adjust expenses down, we will do that, but we will not adjust expenses up if we have surplus. So that means if we collect, instead of 85% of our pledges, if we collect 90% or 110%, we're going to hang on to that as surplus to get us into the next year, because we believe that we've built somewhat of a structural deficit because of those one-time monies. So we don't want to spend everything we have. If we spend an extra $118,000, then we end up next year $118,000 short if we try to keep our budget static. So that is our plan. And at this point, I will take questions from anybody who has any. Rick says the presentation on Zoom is much easier to follow than the screens on church. Yep. Are there any other questions about the budget?
If there are no questions, then I will entertain a motion to approve the budget as presented.
Okay, while you do that, I have to find the poll, so give me just a second, but go ahead and see if you can get a motion.
So move. Mary moves.
Second.
Lee Laskowski seconds.
Okay, I'll have it in just a moment. Okay, here we go.
Please take a moment to poll, approve, or do not approve.
And make sure to hit submit when you do.
It says polling is closed.
I think you stopped the poll.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm going to have to do it again. So if you can vote again, that would be great. I apologize.
It's not giving us a way to submit.
Deanne, we're not getting a way to submit. We're getting a button that says NOI, NOI. Never mind.
Well, we've got about 90 votes so far, so it looks like. Okay, it looks like the vote is slowing down. Give you 5 more seconds. Okay, looks like that's it.
The motion has carried by 91 votes. The budget is approved. Thank you so much, Deanne, for your presentation and clear explanation.
You're welcome.
I will now turn the program over to Ken for the election results. Things you've been waiting for. Go ahead, Ken.
Ken, are you there?
Unmute yourself.
Oh, hold on, Ken, I got you. Now you can unmute yourself.
Now I can unmute myself. Thank you very much.
Sorry.
I try to pantomime, you know. Okay, we do have the voting results. Looked like as many as 20 people voted in the meeting, so Jody had her work cut out for her. Thank you, Jody. For the Board of Trustees, Pam Swan, Kevin Gooman, and Libby Bean were all elected into the Board of Trustees for a new term. And Mary Wolf Francis was confirmed to finish the term she was appointed to. They will be joining Deanne McClenahan and Debbie Grande and Linda Stenholm, and that will be our Board of Trustees this year. And I want to thank Bob Fabre and Susan Keene for their service as their term has ended, and at the end of this month, they'll be off of the board. All right, special funds. The winners in the special funds were Joel Sanis and Carl Anderson. Joel and Carl will be joining Rick Henricks, Joanne McGrath, and Ann Schneider. That'll be our special funds committee now. And we are saying goodbye and thank you to Chris Saar, as we mentioned before. And then for the LDC, Rebecca Riggs, Beverly McCormick, Lee Laskowski, and Roberta Baker have won those positions, the 4 open positions. Also, Roz Hawkins was confirmed to take on the vacant position for the second half of that term. Thanks to them. And then, so they'll be joining myself and Jody Cicerello on the LDC this year. And we're thanking again Tom Briggs and Linda Muth for their service as their term is ending now, and they'll be off of the committee by the end of this month. Also, thank you very much for everyone who ran. Of course, the votes for the contested parts are very close because they're all very good people, and we really appreciate your accepting the nomination, and we hope that you take another crack at it again next year. I believe that finishes the election. And I do want to say this shows we can still have elections in a COVID world.
It is comforting and also sort of inspiring to know that we have such an incredible number of so very talented people that are willing to serve our congregation. And with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn this annual meeting for 2020. Do I hear such a motion?
So moved.
It has been moved by whom, please?
Lorraine Rice.
Lorraine Rice has so moved. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
And who is that?
Roberta Baker.
Bert, thank you. And that does it. We are now adjourned. And thank you so much for your participation in the 2020 annual meeting of the
Hi, John. Comments, sir.